I want to address some lies about Jesus today, and they're commonly believed. I used to believe these same lies. It all stems back to Christian history and a lack of understanding thereof. So I'll just tell you the conspiracy. The conspiracy is in the 4th century BC, the Catholic Church canonized the New Testament, and they chose which Gospels to put in, which Gospels to keep out. So they basically fabricated the life of Jesus, and they created this canon of the New Testament based on their own desires to control people. You know, this is a common lie that's told. And here's why it's not true. When we read the very early church in the 1st through the 3rd centuries, the church that was still being persecuted, these church leaders have writings, manuscripts that survive today. And they did the amazing work of making sure that all of the New Testament canon was strictly sourced back to the disciples. If it did not source back to the eyewitnesses or those who knew the eyewitnesses and worked with them closely, then they were not considered canon. That's why we find the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Judas, the Gospel of Bartholomew, etc., not being included in the New Testament canon. Because of Christianity's persecution in the first 3 centuries, it was not until the 4th century when the Catholic Church could put together an entire library, what we now call the New Testament, of these books. The New Testament canon was copied and spread all over Mesopotamia, all over the known world and around the Mediterranean by the early church. And it was so widely shared, so widely copied, that it would be impossible for someone to gather these books up, change them, and then basically cancel some out. This would be impossible because of how widely these texts were distributed so quickly in the 1st century, the 2nd century, and the 3rd century, how fast and how widespread they were shared, copied, and preserved, by these early church and taught by the early church all around the known world at the time. So don't believe this conspiracy. We actually can trust, and we can see historically why Jesus's words can be trusted as having actually sourced from him by reading the early church who preserved his writings. So stay blessed, everyone. Jesus really loves you. He willingly went to his execution in order so that we would not be separated from him for eternity, so that we can be reconciled to God and have a foundation for loving God that does not involve us reaching for heaven and trying to deserve heaven. It's not about that. We go to heaven because God loves us. We know God loves us because of Jesus' sacrifice. Stay blessed, y'all.